Good afternoon to you. Mark Stott with HurricaneTrack.com with your Hurricane Pro and HD video blog for Monday, the 17th of July, 2017. Pretty active here in the Pacific with a couple of systems worth watching. Obviously, Hurricane Fernanda headed towards the west generally. We'll look at a satellite picture of that in a moment and talk about its future. Another system farther to the east, and then a couple of more here, even more eastward than that. But the good news here, none of these are going to be pose any issues or impacts to Mexico, the Baja, or Central America. Pretty strong high pressure out here. Generally going to be keeping these systems moving westward over the open Pacific. If we look at the satellite picture, we can see that Fernanda here losing its eye just a little bit down there, really racking up the accumulated cyclone energy points. That's about it. In other words, the amount of energy that it is expending. We're able to keep score of that using an interesting formula that we're not going to go over today. But the idea is this will be an ocean system, and even if it gets in the vicinity of Hawaii, strong upper level winds are likely to tear it apart. Colder sea surface temperatures and a more stable air mass through this region will also keep it from being too much of an issue if, and that's a big if, it were to be in the vicinity of Hawaii in the first place. Our other systems here in the eastern Pacific bubbling along, but again, neither of them look like they're going to be any threat to the Mexican coastline. Moving off to the east into the Atlantic Basin, I think one thing that should really jump out, you can see this leading edge of Saharan air really nosing its way in from Africa and the eastern Atlantic, strong high pressure over the Atlantic, driving these large dust outbreaks and very stable dry air into the Atlantic. And that is inhibiting development of our system of interest, which is 95L down here. Nevertheless, it's small enough that it might be able to get its act together just before coming through the Windward Islands here over the next few days. There's also another system back here that could try to develop some. And it's interesting that even with this very dominant and rather dry air mass, trying to think of other adjectives here, in place, that even despite all that, we do have these areas that are trying to develop, which just shows you that once we get to August and September and the natural state of things to change here, where this will become weaker, these systems will be a little bit more robust, that things will probably start to take off. A close-up of 95L down here in the Atlantic. Let me point out here, this is Barbados, if I can get this to work. Right over here, there's Barbados, and it's got a decent band of convection trying to wrap around. Hurricane hunters are going to fly out and check this system out later today, and we'll determine from that if we have a tropical depression on our hands. So far, it's moving pretty fast. That dry air is inhibiting development. Otherwise, this would probably be well on its way to becoming a tropical depression and eventually a tropical storm. Looking at the vorticity signature of 95L, it's there. In fact, there's a decent amount of energy here, as indicated by the greens and then these reds and oranges and yellows in the deep tropics. It's just the dry air that's sitting out here, which you can't see in this particular image. That's the big inhibiting factor. Looking at the global forecast system, the GFS from this morning's run, I want you to pay attention to this area right down here as the system comes into the frame. This is out to the next 5 days, and you can see it does try to strengthen just a little bit as it moves into the Southeast Caribbean Sea on a track, taking it to the north of Trinidad and Tobago, and then there it is there. It kind of dies out. And the reason it does so is these trade winds through here, very brisk over the next few days, and so this is just going to race off and kind of shred itself, if you will. Not able to, the faster they move, the less that they can really pile up the air, or what we call convergence. Not possible with it moving that fast. Some of these wind flags in here, 30 knots or so, so this is going to really be moving fast. And so the opportunity for development looks like it's going to be this window right through here, and unfortunately that brings it right through parts of the Windward Islands, so you folks need to be on the lookout for that. Maybe some gusty winds and the potential for some very heavy rain and squalls, and we'll see what happens. You'll be able to track it with your apps, of course, and with the satellite pictures and updates, and on social media from Hurricane Pro. and HD, so check that out. All right, well, that's it from me for Monday here. Have a great rest of your Monday. I am Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com. That's my site. If you haven't been there, check it out sometime. And, of course, for Hurricane Pro and HD, I'll be back with more for you tomorrow.